So this morning, at least it was pretty much morning for the East Coast of the USA, ex-light heavyweight UFC champion Magomed Ankalaev beat Gostin Guskov in the main event of a UFC fight night. And it pretty much sets up a couple of different things moving forward for the light heavyweight division. Most importantly, who current light heavyweight UFC champion Carlos Ulberg will be fighting next. And Ulberg himself also said it in an interview, I think pretty much immediately after Magomed Ankalaev's win this morning. So it's likely going to be Magomed versus Carlos for the lightweight title, light heavyweight title. As you probably know, Carlos Ulberg won his title recently against Yuri Prohaska on one leg after the knee on his other leg had blown out. He was all over the place trying to hang on and fight with whatever he had left against Yuri Prohaska. And to Yuri Prohaska's demise, he allowed Ulberg to regroup and eventually knock him out. What happened in that fight was ultimately entirely Yuri Prohaska's fault. He decided to show mercy instead of go for the finish, and he paid for it in the end. Now Carlos Ulberg is the current champion, and he is looking for his first title defense. I like Ulberg. I liked him in the fight against Yuri, so I did ultimately get proven right by Ulberg being the victor. But I would have liked Ulberg to win in a more, solidifying fashion, a more concrete fashion. One that would fully solidify himself as the rightful champion. That the fight ended in a very controversial fashion through Yuri Prohaska allowing Ulberg to regroup and recover. But yeah, now Ulberg himself has pretty much certified that he'll be fighting Magomed Ankalaev next by saying that he saw what he needed to see in watching the fight between Magomed and Guskov this morning. So Magomed looked good in the fight. I do first want to break down what I saw this morning in that fight. Magomed just dominated. Guskov was on the run for a lot of that fight, and Magomed really had to chase him down and continue dealing damage. But in the end, Magomed was eventually able to get the finish. Finally, I think Magomed really has never looked bad. Recently in his career. I think he was telling the truth about the injury he was facing right before fighting Alex Proton Pereira for the second time, and that allowed Pereira to just come out the gate bulldozing over Ankalaev. I really do believe Ankalaev would have stood a better chance if he did, not suffer the injury. But that's just how the fight game goes. Sometimes you do have to fight through injuries, and those lead to results like that. But now Ankalaev is trying to get back to his title that he won against Alex Pereira in their first fight, and he looks like he very well might do it. It's going to be a really, really tough fight for Carlos Ulberg. If you were to ask me who I think wins or who should be favored, I do think it's Ankalaev. I think Ankalaev should be the favorite. However, I'm going to go with Carlos Ulberg. I'm going to go with Ulberg. And I like both guys. I'm more of an Ankalaev fan, but I really, really do believe in the counter-striking of Carlos Ulberg. He does remind me of Israel Adesanya in a couple of ways, in a couple of strong ways. And his counter-punching is just beautiful to watch. What happened in this fight with Yuri Prohaska was a freak accident, and I think if it didn't happen, Ulberg would have almost definitely knocked out Yuri in the later rounds, in my opinion. Yuri has become, really formidable. He has evolved in many ways, in the way he fights. His head movement has gotten to an incredible level. Yuri is just constantly improving, and I love to see that from him. But Carlos, I've always believed that he is a championship fighter. His counter-striking is at a level where it is able to take him all the way to the title, and he's proven that now. He's proven that it can take him to a title because it took him there. The question now is, will it be able to take him to his first title defense against Magomed Ankalaev? And I believe it will. Magomed is a really well-rounded fighter. His grappling, isn't crazy good, but that's really because he hasn't really showcased it that much. He's really gone to his striking ability more often than not, and it is very good. Magomed is very fast with his hands. He's technically very sound. His striking IQ is also really high, and we saw that in his first fight against Alex Pereira, where he boxed circles around him, in my opinion. And he very well could do the same to Carlos Ulberg. The issue is, will he be able to negate or constantly show awareness of the brilliant counter striking of Ulberg? Will he allow himself or not allow himself to overthrow on things, or rush certain combinations or sequences to the point where he's leaving his chin open or significant areas of his body open for too longer than he should be, to where Ulberg can counter with a big shot to those certain points of the body. It's going to be, the ball is going to be in Ankalaev's court, in my opinion, the way I see it. Ulberg's the champion. He's the A side. His talents are blatant. You can see what he's good at. It's up to Magomed and his team to identify the talents and to work on ways to minimize them, to fight a very sound fight, to fight with constant awareness of how sharp Carlos Ulberg can be on counters, to possibly think about entertaining grappling and getting Carlos Ulberg in awkward positions on the ground and seeing what he can do there, That's what Magomed is going to have to consider, So if I were a betting man, I'd put money on Ulberg. I'm going to go with Ulberg. However, like I said, I do expect Magomed Ankalaev to be the favorite, but maybe he won't be. I don't know. It's up to Vegas, and it's up to what the larger percentage of MMA fans around the world believe. But if you ask me, I'm going to go with Ulberg. I think he connects on something big later in the fight. I think the fight's going to be a dogfight starting out, maybe in the first 2 rounds, but rounds 3, 4, and 5 are going to be more dicey. I think Magomed's going to take more risks in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and they're going to lead to excellent counter opportunities for Carlos Ulberg. And I think Ulberg lands huge on a big one, I'll say in round 4, that either knocks out Magomed Ankalaev or drops him to where Ulberg can capitalize on some ground and pound to get a TKO finish. But I see Ulberg finishing the fight before the final bell. There is a world where Ankalaev goes out there and boxes the head off Ulberg and wins via a safe decision, or he's able to knock Ulberg out himself, but I just don't see it happening. I like Ulberg's style, and I think a really calm, focused, and collected Carlos Ulberg can beat just about anybody at light heavyweight because of his brilliant, and I really mean brilliant, counter striking. But Magomed is no easy day out. He's a former champion. He's done what it takes to get to a title. Like I said, he's well-rounded. He's got power behind the hands. He does have a good, a healthy, sized fight IQ, especially on the feet. He's formidable, but I don't think he's a fighter that has the ability to shut down Carlos Ulberg or constantly make him guess like an Alex Pereira would have, So, yeah, it'll be a great fight. It's a fun fight. I think it should be the next fight over the light heavyweight title. I think Magomed has proven that he deserves another title shot after this big win. Yes, it should have been against Khalil Roundtree. Yes, Guskov was coming off of short notice in the first place, but Magomed showed up and he did what needed to be done from his side. He got the win. I think the reward should be next for him. I look forward to it. I think the fight will be made, within the next couple of weeks. I think Ulberg is ready. He's hungry. He's looking for the first title defense. He's been, killing it in terms of his recovery. and he wants to get back out there. That's what I like about Carlos Ulberg. I sense a real dog in him. He's a fun fighter to watch, you know. Yeah, sure, I'm more of an Ankalaev fan, but that's just because I don't, like resonate as a fan would, with Carlos Ulberg. I still heavily respect the dude, and like I said, I'm picking him to win against Amalgamet Ankalaev. I'm just not a big fan, you know. But I like the way he fights. He's exciting. I like seeing him as a champion. And I think he has a lot more to give. And I like how hungry he is. Overall, let me know what you think. I look forward to the fight. And I look forward to Ulberg showing people just why he is the current light heavyweight champion.